This anthology series is open to numerous possibilities. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 sci-fi movies that could have been in the Cloverfield universe.
What do you know about him?
He was in the Navy, I know that. I guess he did some stuff with satellites.
What kind of stuff?
Satellite stuff.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're taking a look at science fiction films with themes, tropes, and ideas that seem tailor-made for the Cloverfield franchise. Number 10, Midnight Special.
Sometimes we are asked to do things that are beyond us.
J.J. Abrams has been praised by many as a modern Steven Spielberg. Likewise, Jeff Nichols' Midnight Special draws comparisons to numerous Spielberg classics, most notably Close Encounters of the Third Kind. If Nichols' screenplay had fallen into Abrams' hands, he definitely would have seen the potential for a Cloverfield movie. Like the best films in the Cloverfield franchise, Midnight Special draws the audience in with its phenomenal world-building and gripping mystery. The story follows a young boy with special abilities who goes on the run with his family as the government and a cult pursue them. The film's ending might not answer every question, but that's just another reason why it's a good Cloververse fit. Number 9, Life.
Hold my hand.
Most fans would agree that the Cloverfield paradox was the franchise's biggest disappointment, especially after that epic Super Bowl trailer dropped. If you want to see a film set on a space station that delivers reasonably well on its potential, we'd highly recommend this sci-fi thriller. Life follows a group of astronauts who encounter an alien organism that seems harmless at first, but soon emerges as something much smarter, stronger, and deadlier.
The liquid is blocking my vision.
Despite treading on familiar territory, Life distinguishes itself with strong performances and production values, leaving little room for the audience to breathe. The same goes for the best Cloverfield films, which are less about the premise and more about the execution. Number 8, Coherence.
Oh, that's magnificent.
Despite its many flaws, the Cloverfield paradox did introduce a few intriguing concepts, such as parallel dimensions. Coherence is another film that touches upon the idea of a multiverse, but with more effective results. While its ambitions are high, the film is small in scale, mainly taking place in a suburban house. As a comet passes over the neighborhood, it opens up a box of alternate realities with different versions of the characters becoming intertwined.
We're splitting up again?
No, we're not splitting up. We're just gonna go in 2 different groups.
The whole movie plays out like a murder mystery party, but without the murder. Coherence would feel right at home in the Cloververse or even the Twilight Zone, exploring complex theories through the eyes of everyday people.
We're in a different reality here.
Number 7, Pacific Rim.
Today we are canceling the apocalypse!
The first Cloverfield didn't delve too deep into the giant monster's origins. In the Cloverfield paradox, however, it suggested that Clover possibly came from another dimension. That sounds an awful lot like Pacific Rim, which revolved around kaijus that emerged from an interdimensional portal known as the Breach. Is it possible that Clover came from this exact same portal? Well, that wouldn't entirely add up, since the Breach is located in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of China.
Oh, Yancy, wake up! Movement in the breach.
Clover, meanwhile, came from the Atlantic Ocean, where it went on to attack New York. Nevertheless, we'd be willing to overlook a few inconsistencies if it means getting to watch Clover fight a Jaeger. Number 6, Moon.
You've been up here too long, man. You've lost your marbles.
If 10 Cloverfield Lane proved anything, it's that this franchise isn't dependent on flashy special effects. Sometimes an atmospheric setting and small, yet capable cast are all that's required. The same can be said about Moon, which makes the most out of very little. Both films primarily work on a psychological level, as the protagonist gets lost in a claustrophobic wonderland of uncertainty.
You ever been out this far? No.
Signal failure.
Never have.
Moon might not be set in the Cloververse, but it is part of a larger cinematic universe that's been further explored in director Duncan Jones's other sci-fi film, Mute. Since Mute and the Cloverfield Paradox have distributor Netflix in common, though, would a crossover be out of the question?
You better let me go outside and take a look.
Number 5, Super 8.
Bad things happen. But you can still live.
This one seems like a natural fit, and not just because it was written, produced, and directed by J.J. Abrams. Super 8 has echoes of all 3 Cloverfield movies, with an engrossing sense of mystery and an unseen creature wreaking havoc upon humanity. Considering their resemblance, it wouldn't be surprising if Clover and the alien from Super 8 were distant relatives, especially since both were designed by Neville Page. Parallels don't end there. Young Charles is an aspiring filmmaker who rarely goes anywhere without his camera, tying into the found footage theme of the first Cloverfield. Seeing how Super 8 is set in 1979, it actually could have worked wonderfully as a prequel.
I think we're gonna die.
Number 4, Edge of Tomorrow.
You get injured on the field, you better make sure you die.
Since parallel universes are already in the mix, time loops wouldn't feel out of place in the Cloverfield universe. Extraterrestrial life is no stranger to the franchise either. Edge of Tomorrow masterfully blends these two concepts as Tom Cruise's William Cage repeats the cycle of life and death in a seemingly never-ending war against an alien race.
Wait.
Although it may sound like a more explosive version of Groundhog Day, Edge of Tomorrow is a cleverly plotted and even humorous adventure that makes most other modern sci-fi movies look generic by comparison. The film would have been a breath of fresh air for the Cloverfield franchise, while still encompassing a similar spirit.
You're going the wrong way. You're gonna miss your moment.
Number 3, Annihilation.
It's like they're stuck in a continuous mutation.
The Cloververse often centers on ordinary people crossing paths with supernatural beings. In Annihilation, the characters encounter their fair share of strange creatures, including a mutated bear that's still haunting our nightmares. The film's setting is an extraordinary entity in itself, walking a tightrope between being an inviting paradise and a hellish underworld.
They're everywhere. Malignant. Like tumors.
The lighthouse in particular is a harrowing location on par with the bunker in 10 Cloverfield Lane. As is the case with most Cloverfield movies, the plot of Annihilation is largely clouded in ambiguity, leaving it up to the audience to connect all the dots. However you interpret the film, one thing's for sure. This material feels ripe for the world of Cloverfield.
Get back.
Number 2, The Cabin in the Woods.
Let's get this party started.
So far, the Cloverfield franchise has mainly limited itself to giant monsters and aliens. This universe's mythology is still fairly loose, however, sometimes feeling as if the filmmakers are just making it up as they go along. That being said, we'd be open to a Cloverfield movie with zombies, witches, and mermen. The Cabin in the Woods ingeniously brings numerous monsters together, satirizing horror movies while also paying homage to them.
I had to dismember that guy with the trowel. What have you been up to?
It would actually make sense if the events of the Cloververse were all part of a conspiracy, with an underground facility pulling all the strings. Plus, if giant evil gods ever did take over, Clover may be the only creature who could contend with them. Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions.
Whatever kind of gang war bullshit you're involved in, leave me out of it, please.
Hey, this ain't got nothing to do with gangs.
Or drugs, or rap music, or violence in video games. This is the worst night of my life.
Now that's a proper introduction.
Number 1, A Quiet Place. Of all the movies on this list, none are as well suited for the Cloververse than A Quiet Place. That's because the film's writers briefly considered developing it to be a Cloverfield movie, much like how the God Particle eventually became the Cloverfield Paradox. We can definitely see why the screenwriters made this connection, as the noise-sensitive creatures look a bit like Clover, and the film's enclosed setting calls 10 Cloverfield Lane to mind. When all was said and done, though, it was ultimately decided that the film would work better as a standalone story. While it would have made for a cool addition to the franchise, what we got was still a triumph of modern terror. Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.